All right, welcome everybody to the webinar. Glad that you've come. We are super excited to have you join us today for the 10 crucial keys to building scalable solutions for your business. You may have come for a couple different reasons. You may be currently in the process of building and growing a company that is scaling pretty quickly, and you may be looking for solutions to make sure that you handle that growth comfortably, effectively, with as minimal pain as possible. You may have already gone out and acquired different software solutions to help with that growth, whether that's a CRM system, an accounting ERP system, an inventory system, whatever that biggest challenge is that you might be dealing with. You might have already gone out and gotten that, and you may be struggling through that, or maybe looking for ways to optimize that. Or finally, maybe you're in that process of exploring different solutions to help with the growth that you know is coming down the road and over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and wanting to ultimately avoid some of the pitfalls of solutions that you could go out and acquire or build, knowing that you know some of the danger areas, knowing some of the key considerations to make sure that you're vetting solutions appropriately. So that's really what the goal of this webinar is today. My name is Brad White with VARC Solutions. A lot of what we do here, we're QuickBooks specialists, but we're also Quickbase specialists. We build custom solutions for companies, and these are the types of considerations that we think about. These are the types of issues that we get into with our clients when we're trying to build solutions. And so we're going to touch on a number of different things. I'm going to turn off my camera here just for a second and switch to the slide view. And so let me go ahead and start sharing my slide. You should be able to see that now. What I want to do is just real quickly go through the agenda today. Like, what are we going to cover, and what are we going to talk through? So let me see if I'm sharing that screen, and let's see if we go here. Okay, perfect. All right, so in terms of today's agenda, we're going to be going through 10 considerations, things that you should be thinking about when you are going out and trying to either buy a software solution or build a software solution. These are the things that we think are super important to make sure that you're doing that, not only for today's needs, but for tomorrow's needs. And so we're going to go through, a scalable platform. What does that really mean? How important is automation within whatever platform you choose? Can it handle exceptions? Does it integrate well with other systems that you may be using? How customizable is it in terms of tables and fields and data, users and roles and permissions? Can you easily report on the data that's in that system? Can you get the data out? Can you get the data back in? What are the capabilities in terms of maintaining that system? And then we'll kind of wrap up with, like, what's the user and community support look like as well. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Thank you again for joining. If you're just now arriving, again, you can use the question panel if you have questions throughout the webinar. You can use the raise hand icon, and Aaron on my team is helping me monitor that stuff throughout the webinar. Feel free to ask those questions, and we will try to address those as we go. So let's go ahead and get into the content. So first off is, are you building on a scalable platform? Okay, now when I talk about platform, what I'm really talking about is, we're not just talking about a specific software program to handle a very specific solution. We're talking about a platform that can handle all the needs of your company, okay? Not just one need, but all the needs of your company. It's important to choose a platform that can allow you to grow into different areas, evolve your company, and what is it doing, what is it not doing. And when you start talking about platforms that can do all that stuff, there's going to be an interconnectedness of the data. Okay. Now, I'm going to throw out some techie types of terms that may or may not mean anything to you, and I'm going to try to explain some of those things as well. But one of the key components of a scalable platform is something that I call a relational database structure. All that really means is everything's in its place. There's connectedness where it's appropriate, and ultimately, you're not having to re-enter information multiple times within your system. You can, just like the screenshot on the screen there, if you've got an employee table, you shouldn't have to add the employee to multiple places. You can add it in one place and then use that data throughout your system. That's the concept, and it's really a key of growth, because if you build a system or you have a structure to your data that is not optimal, that's going to limit your ability to scale that over time. Or you may be creating a house of cards that is very, very hard to maintain and keep up to date later on. The second component to a scalable platform is cloud-based. I mean, this is nothing new to you. I'm sure most of the folks that are on this call know that cloud is kind of like it's where everything is and has been going for quite a long time. But I don't want to minimize the fact that that's still a very, very important consideration. You don't necessarily want to buy software that you install on a server anymore. You can buy cloud-based software as long as it has the capabilities that you're looking for, so that your data is no longer in a silo on a file server somewhere that only techie people can get to. We want to have cloud-based solutions that are easily accessible by your people, but also easily connectable to other systems, as we're going to talk about. I think the third component of Scalable is low code. Okay. Now let me define what low code is, because I don't want to take it for granted that everybody even knows what low code means. But I will say this, it's kind of the opposite of having a programmed solution. Okay, in the old days, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there would be people sitting in a room, writing PHP code or C# or using Python and JavaScript and all these different codes to build scalable, or to build solutions, to build applications, to build mobile apps, things like that. And those solutions are still in use today, but more and more the trend is towards what is called low code development that doesn't require you to be a coding expert. You don't have to you don't have to become a programmer to use or build a solution. And so the key here, especially in today's day and age, you don't necessarily want to have to go hire a developer to do everything within your business. You've got smart people on your team, some that are probably more or less tech savvy, and it's good to be able to have people on your team to go build solutions without having to pick up the phone and call a developer every time you need something. And so a low code platform allows you to do that, because things are more visual, they're more drag and drop, they're more what you see is what you get on screen type of things. Whereas the coding, while sometimes is used, by the way, it's not the core thing that you're going to find yourself needing to be able to do within an application. When we build solutions for our clients, we occasionally get into actual coded solutions or coded parts of it, but it's really an extension of the core platform as opposed to being things that are built on a specific code base. Why is this important? Okay, why is this super, super important? Well, the easiest way to explain that is if you have a solution that you've either bought or built that's on a specific coding language, well, the fact of the matter is in 5 years, that coding language may not be in vogue anymore, okay? It may not be what people are using anymore because things are moving so fast. So that low code platform it's an abstraction of, what's going on behind the scenes. There's still stuff happening behind the scenes, but you don't have to think about it so much, because what you're trying to worry about and manage is the things that are in front of you, which is your forms and your reports and your data and things like that. So that low code platform is still super important, because you don't want to attach yourself to something that 5 years from now you might have to replace because that coding language is no longer the commonly used situation. Okay. All right. So that's the platform. Let's now move on to the next consideration, which is the automation topic. In the old days, automation is what you might hear referred to more as like macros. Okay, you've got this Excel spreadsheet, and you have this thing that you do on a recurring basis, and so you might record a macro, and so every time you need to do this thing, you click the play button on the macro, and it goes and does that thing. Okay, that is and and still is a form of automation. When we start thinking about cloud-based solutions to help you scale and grow, you need to be thinking about what can I automate. You don't want to have everybody doing things manually every single time they do it, especially if you're having to repeatedly do something, okay? And I'm going to give you some examples. But what I want to, the concept here is, if you're going to scale, okay, if your business is growing quickly, you need to automate as many things as you can possibly automate, as long as that can be done error-free. Okay, you don't want to build automations that are breaking all the time, so you need to be building automations that really work. But that's recurring activities. It's putting in things like default values. Every time you create a record or create a, add a client to a database, there may be defaults that are always in place that you can automatically include in that, so that you're not having to create a client and then having to manually go in and add those defaults. Just some basic stuff there. And by the way, when I talk about automation here, I'm not talking about AI, okay? AI has its place, and there's a lot of really good uses for it, but I'm not even talking about AI here. I'm just talking about taking things that you do over and over again and automating those things. One of the examples that I like to use is what is called template activities. So, for example, and I'll go to the next slide, and this is a really good example of what I'm talking about. So in our company, we have a process that we go through whenever we hire a brand new employee. Well, quite frankly, it's always the same. We always collect the W-4 and the I-9 information. We always, have some sort of a computer or login set up. We have to go through a job description with that employee. We've got a new hire training that has to start, right? And so we know when we hire somebody, we're going to be going through these 5, 10, 15, 20 steps. They are in a certain order. They're getting assigned to specific people. One has to happen before the next one happens. And so what we've done is we've created a template of those activities, so that anytime we hit the button to create a brand new employee, it automatically creates the 20, 30, 40 different tasks that we have to do to get that new employee onboarded. And some are assigned to me, some are assigned to Aaron, some are assigned to Nancy, some are assigned to, that person's direct supervisor, right? And those are just automatic, okay? And now I can build reports and dashboards to show what I need to do, when I need to do it. And also, if someone was being offboarded, same thing. We've got to, disable accounts. We've got to do email forwarding. We've got to reset passwords. If you've got those types of things that are happening frequently, the tasks that you have to do, you can build automations, or at least whatever platform you're building on should be able to automate those tasks that happen over and over again to make your life easy, to help you scale. Now, one other thing I'll say about this too is you can also build logic into, sorry, I'm going to go back one slide. You can also build logic into these. So for example, I'm going to take the example of a project manager. Well, let's say you're a project manager for a construction company, but you've got commercial construction and you also have residential construction. Well, commercial construction projects might have a different template or list of activities than a residential construction project. So if you're filling out a form or you're starting to do the tracking for a new project, and you put in there, is it commercial or residential, that in and of itself ought to drive the automation so that it's pulling in the right activities for that type of project. That's the kind of thing you should be able to do in any solution that you're going out and either buying or building, to be able to handle that level of complexity as you go. All right, one other thing that's super important is the ability to handle exceptions, okay? So when I think of scaling, I'm thinking, okay, hey, I'm gonna be doing more and more of this activity. I'm gonna try to automate as many things as possible. I'm gonna create logic within those automations so that I'm being smart about what is included in those automated routines or automated tasks. Now, that's great until the exceptions start, okay? In other words, what do we do when it doesn't always work that way? What do we do when there's an exception to a standard process or procedure that we built. Can that system handle it? And the answer is it should. Okay, if you're going out and buying a software solution off the shelf, so to speak, and it can't handle exceptions to the normal workflows, you're going to be building a bigger and bigger and bigger problem as you try to scale, because those problems are not going to go away. Those exceptions are not going to go away. Every time we have a talk with a new client and we're helping them build out a solution, it's so funny. I mean, if you could be on some of the calls that we have, and by the way, if any of our clients are on the phone, I'm not talking about you, of course, but sometimes we'll have our clients, on the phone, and we'll, have 3 or 4 people from the client on the call, and we'll say, okay, well, tell us how you do it, right? Tell us how you do this process. And somebody will say, well, first we do this, then we do this, and then we do this. And somebody on that call is going to go, no, that's not how we do it. We haven't been doing it that way in 5 years. We do it differently now. Oh, and sometimes it works that way, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. Those are just the natural conversations that we have with people, because we know that there are exceptions. There's workflow exceptions, there's one-off situations that you've got to be able to handle, and quite frankly, sometimes you have what I call reversals or change orders. In other words, whatever that project is, or whatever that client engagement is that you're working on, you might have started it, but at some point a client might call you up and say, well, yeah, that's what we thought we wanted. We want to change it now. We want to do something differently. Or, hey, we thought we had the budget. We don't have the budget. We need to scale this back. You're going to have those types of changes. And again, can your system handle it? And if it can't, you're going to have a really, really hard time scaling your system. Okay, so those are some of the topics. And here's, by the way, here's a really, really specific example, just to kind of get you really super clear on what I'm really talking about here. Let's say that you've got an ordering system. Maybe you went out and bought a system, or installed a software program that handles your ordering. It could be like a CRM system. It could be a field service management system. It could be some sort of a POS system, what have you. And if you take a look at that screen on the top left where it says the happy path, okay, here's what happens normally that normally works really, really great. You quote the customer, that's step 1. Step 2, the customer approves the order. Step 3, the customer pays for the credit card. Number 4, the order is delivered. Okay, when it works that way, it works really, really, really well. Now, what happens though, and this is where the exception path is on the right side, let's say you quote the customer, the customer approves the order, and then when you say, great, when can we get paid via credit card? And they say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't actually pay people via credit cards. You have to send us, we have to send you a purchase order, okay? Then you can invoice us against that purchase order, and then we will mail you a check. Okay, well, just imagine if you've got this system that you have, or you've built it, and it doesn't have the ability to handle POs or payment via check. Well, you've just created a problem. Okay, now you've got, well, what do we do now? Are we going to have post-it notes reminding us to do the PO, or to invoice them and make the deposit for the check? So you need to be able to handle that situation. So that's just one example of a very, very common type of setup and situation. So I'm going to load a poll here because I want to get your feedback on some of the stuff that we've talked about so far. And let me go ahead and launch this poll. On your screen, you should see this right now, or here in the next 15 seconds or so. Go ahead and take a vote on this, this question. What is your biggest pain point? And again, you could be in the middle of this, you could be thinking about this, this could be something that is on your radar for the future, but what is your biggest pain point? Is it understanding how to structure a scalable database or system? Is it creating and handling the automations? Is it handling all the exceptions? Is it all the above? Does none of this apply to you? Give you another couple seconds to vote on what you think is your biggest pain point, and I'll share the results with you here. Going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to close the poll, and I'm going to share the results on the screen. You should see at this point the results. And so it looks like a lot of the challenges these days is around the creating of the automations and handling some of those exceptions as well. So yes, that's a very, very important thing. And so when you're building scalable solutions, creating those automations, especially in those recurring repetitive scenarios, super, super, super important. So thank you so much for that. We appreciate the feedback. If you have questions, again, make sure that you're putting those in the question panel or using the hand icon, and we'll go with those. But let's go ahead if you don't have any of those, and let's keep going. Okay, so one of the other considerations that we want to make sure and address is, does the system integrate? Does it play nicely, so to speak, in the sandbox with other solutions that you may be trying to use within your company? Okay. All right. So again, what does this mean? The point overall here is systems can no longer live in isolations. They have to be able to talk to each other. Gone are the days where you can literally just buy one program off the shelf, install it, and start using it, and have it handle everything you need it to do. Okay, it's just not a reality anymore. You may have a web store, you may have an Amazon store, you maybe have a POS system, you've got your accounting system, you've got your CRM system, you've got your marketing system. You're going to have multiple systems no matter what. Okay. And if you're a big fan of AI and you've been following along this over the last 12 to 18 months, there's 20 new AI solutions out there, and you're probably gravitating to some of those and using some of those. Well, what currently integrates? Okay. Are you using a solution that connects the dots between the other things that you're using? And if you don't, and if you haven't, that's going to be a problem. At some point, you're going to have a breakdown. Now, the reason why integrations are so incredibly important is because integrations keep you from having to do things twice. Okay, if I've got a sales pipeline management solution, and you've got a separate CRM solution for once a client actually becomes a client, and those things are not connected, well, what that means is you're adding people to a sales pipeline management solution, and you're working that lead or prospect through that process. But once they become a client, now you're going to have to go rekey that person into your client database or your CRM. No, that's terrible. I mean, that's a time waster. Now, if you're not growing quickly and you're not scaling or planning to scale, okay, no big deal. You copy and paste, you copy and paste, you copy and paste. No big deal. But if you're doing that one time a day, that's simple. If you're doing it a few times a day, no big deal. But if you're doing that 100 times a day, 500 times a day, 1,000 times a day, it's again, we're talking about scaling here. If you're trying to scale your business and you have those disconnected systems and they're not integrated, that manual task that wasn't a problem before now becomes a massive, massive headache that is a bottleneck to your growth, and it's a killer of efficiency, and ultimately it's going to cost you a lot of time and money if you don't integrate it. So that's why integrations are so incredibly important. So let's talk about, like, how do you integrate? Like, what are the components of that make this stuff work? Some of the examples that I put up on the screen here, you might need your CRM system to talk to your accounting system. You might need your HR candidate tracking system to feed into, your payroll system. You've got your sales pipeline that might need to be connected to your marketing system. You've got your website and POS systems that need to be able to connect to your inventory and warehouse systems. Okay, those are some of the examples that we see all the time. Question is, how do we integrate them? Well, the good news is there's some common platforms that are out there and available. And if you've chosen the right platform, or if you've chosen the right accounting or software solution, those integrations might be easy or they might be hard. So one of the key components to integrations is this thing called Open API. Okay, Open API is just a techie term to say that whatever that software is that you're using, it has an open door that allows other systems to connect to it to either read data, write data, or update information. That's pretty much really all that means. And so, for example, most most applications that are out there today that are in common use, and when I say common use, I'm saying, hey, there's 10,000 people, there's 100,000 people, there's 1 million people using it. When you start getting into higher volumes of use, the people that are building those solutions are going to create what are called open API connections. They're basically going to say, hey, here's the rules and procedures you have to do to be able to talk to our system, but we're going to make that data accessible if you follow the rules, okay? Well, if you've got two systems that you're trying to integrate and both have open API connectivity, you can integrate them, okay? Sometimes those integrations are hard, but possible, and sometimes they're super, super easy. It just depends. I'll give you an example. So again, one of the platforms that we build on is called Quickbase. Well, in the Quickbase world, Quickbase has this integration platform called pipelines. So in Quickbase pipelines, they've got an Outlook integration. They've got a G Suites integration. They have a Salesforce integration. They've got a HubSpot integration. And so when there's an existing integration platform like Quickbase pipelines, it makes it a lot easier to connect the dots between those two systems. But let's say that you've got this system that was built 10 years ago, maybe it wasn't really intended to be connected to everything else, and it might have an open API, but the other tool that you're using is not even aware of it. Like they don't even know that that other thing exists. You might have to go hire a programmer to build a connection, okay, but a real code-based connection between those two systems. However, there are also very mainstream integration platforms that you may have heard of or may have used in the past. One is called Zapier or Zapier. The other one is called Workato. Okay, Zapier and Workato are very, very, very mainstream, very highly used integration platforms to allow you to connect one thing to another thing. Okay, and what's really cool about Workato and Zapier is they are the integration middleware that connects different things. So, the last time I looked on Zapier and Workato, I mean, we're talking about 3,000 integrations. We're talking about 10,000 integrations. So, very likely, if you've got two different systems that have an open API, Zapier and Workato probably can connect the dots if instead of having to go create something completely manual from scratch. Okay, so those platforms are out there, and if you, by the way, just kind of an aside here, if you have a couple different systems that you're trying to integrate and you don't really know what's possible, let us know. At the end of the webinar, I have my contact information, and you'll be able to reach out to us and say, hey, these are the things that I'm trying to integrate. Is it possible? Can it be possible? Can you guys do it? We can kind of let you know and do a little bit of the research to find out if those things can be integrated. Okay. All right. So that's on the integration front. Let's shift gears here and talk about some of the customizations. Again, I'm going to go back to the core concept of this webinar, which is we're talking about buying or creating scalable solutions, and what are those considerations that you need to be thinking about before you go buy a solution or before you go build a solution. One of the key considerations is it customizable? And so what does that mean? So there's actually a couple different subtopics within this customization area. One of them is the tables or the table structure themselves customizable? Okay, in other words, let's say that you were going to go out and buy a customer relationship management software, and it's got a client table. Okay, well, that client table might have things like client information, first name, last name, business name, phone number, and email. Okay, those are the pretty standard ones. But what if there's like 10 or 20 or 100 other things that you want to track about that customer that are not part of the cookie cutter customer list that software has for you? Okay, can it be customized? Can you add fields? Is there a limit to the number of fields that you can have? Is there different lengths of data fields that you have, or is it maxing out at 50 characters? Like, those are the types of things you're going to want to ask. The other consideration is like fields and data types. So Obviously, it's really, really easy to have a table with fields in it that are all text, but what about numeric? What about currency? What about formula data types, phone number data types, email and HTML link data types, file attachment types? If you need those things, you're going to need that solution to handle those different types of data. Formulas in complex data transformations. So I don't know if you've ever seen a listing like this. By the way, I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say you have. If you've ever seen a listing where all the data was kind of separated out into different columns, think spreadsheets here, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's say you have a client list, and in one field you've got Mr. or Mrs., another one you've got first name, another one you've got middle initial, another one you've got last name, another one you've got company name, phone number, email address, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? In a properly structured database, those would be separate fields, and that's how we would build it. But just because that's how the data is structured doesn't mean that's how you want it presented. That may not be what you want it to look like on a report or a form. On a form, if you were looking at a customer list, maybe you'd want it to say Mr. John Smith and then comma the company. Well, being able to create data fields that are actually formulas that concatenate data together and put commas and quotes and symbols and all sorts of other things that you might want to have. If you don't have the ability to do that, it's going to limit what that data looks like. And quite frankly, users can make or break a system because they look at it and they're going, oh, I don't like this. It doesn't look pretty. It doesn't look streamlined. It doesn't look efficient, right? So having that ability to customize those things can be really, really important. All right, let's talk about another area of customization, which is super critical, and that is user roles and permissions. So who can access this system? If you don't have the ability to define what a user can or can't do, you're going to have a problem, because trust me, at some point you're going to be able to you're going to want to say this person can do this type of stuff, this person cannot do this type of stuff. You also might be able to define that by job function, otherwise known as roles. So I might have a project manager role that I want to allow to see and do certain things. I might want to have an accounting person role that can do other things. I might want to have a senior leader role that can look and do certain things, but maybe not touch and mess up other things, right? So you need to be able to define roles and then limit the ability to add, edit, delete, report on, etc., based on those roles. Data permissions can be super, super helpful, and this kind of gets into the category of governance, data governance. What can be seen? What can be changed? Is there any type of audit capabilities in terms of that, what was changed and who changed it? Those types of things. Well, if you are building on the right platform, you'll have the ability to do those things. Let's talk about one more consideration under the category of customization, and that is reporting. So in our company, we have lots and lots of reports, right? We are running lots of different reports. If we're doing a marketing campaign, we're going to say, hey, I want to go build a report that shows, these types of people. And so I'm going to go create that report. Well, the question is that report just for me? Or is it a report I want to share with my team? Okay. And so you need the ability to create reports that are shared between other people. But at the same time, you might want to have the ability to create a report that's just for you, that nobody else has on their screen, or when they log in, they don't see that report. Because quite frankly, I build reports all the time because I've got somebody calls me up or asks me a question. I'm like, I don't know, let me go look. And I don't want to have to figure that out again tomorrow. So I might, go do the query, build the report. I want to hit the save button. That report is for me, but I don't want to clutter up somebody else's report list with stuff that they could care less about. So the distinction between shared reports and individual and personal reports is really, really important. Also, the ability to create charts and graphs and visual representations of the data. Oftentimes, this gets into the category of dashboards for your applications. And quite frankly, if you've ever scrolled through a really long spreadsheet, you know what I'm talking about. Your eyes kind of start getting a little glossy, and you get really tired looking at a spreadsheet. If you could visualize that to make it very easy to just consume and understand what's going on at a glance versus having to go dig through the data, that's a big time saver and super important when you're trying to grow and scale. And then building dashboards. One of the things that we do for clients all the time is we build dashboards for different roles, so that a team can see what they need to do and what's important to them, but there's another team that has a different dashboard that they care about, right? We did work for a client last year, a couple years ago, that was a company. They did the car wraps. Okay, so they're the ones, you say, hey, this is what I want wrapped around this car, truck, van, whatever, and they've got a whole production process. There's an art submission process, there's an approval process, there's a printing and production process, then there's the actual wrapping, and then there's the quality, right? Well, different teams and different people at different phases of that production need to see different things, okay? And so having dashboards based on the team or role can be helpful to your workflows, and it also is especially as you start growing and it's not just one person doing something anymore, you need that dashboard type of visibility. All right, I'm glad you're still here. I'm glad you're following along. I hope this has been great for you. I'm gonna load up our second poll here and see what you think about this. So the question I'm about to load here is, what is your biggest challenge or frustration? So on your screen, you've got the what is your biggest challenge or frustration. Maybe it's integrating with other systems. Go ahead and take an answer there. Is it the ability to sufficiently customize? Is it limiting access to certain people or roles? Is it creating usable reports or dashboards? What do you think? Give us some feedback on what your biggest challenge is or frustration is. Give you about 30 seconds to go ahead and vote on that, and then we will see what you think. Okay, give you about 5 more seconds to vote. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll and share the results. And so what you should see right now is the poll results, and looks like most, so a couple different categories there. Ability to customize the existing applications. I think that's super important. Also another 40% creating usable reports and dashboards. Again, very important. So thank you for contributing to that poll question. I'm gonna go ahead and hide that, and we'll go on to the next section of the presentation, and we'll go from there. All right, so here we go. Data must be accessible. All right, so again, I'm going to go back to the central message here. We're trying to either buy or build a scalable solution. If you're in the consideration phase and you're like, I'm going to go kick the tires on this solution, you may be thinking now, what is this? What are the features? What are the functionalities? Does it connect with this other system that we use? All those types of things, and those are great and super important. What you may not be thinking about is a year from now. What if you need to make changes in not just the structure changes, but what about the data itself? Can you get the data out? Can you update it efficiently? Is it easy to find and fix stuff? How accessible is your data? Some software, by the way, I mean, just be candid here, some software programs and solutions out there, you can get the data in really easily, but they don't necessarily make it as easy to get the data out, because quite frankly, if you can get the data out, you can move to a different solution a little bit easier too, okay? So, so some companies, some solutions limit the ability to get the data out, or they just make you jump through a lot of hoops. So when I talk about accessibility, One of the categories, or one of the components of that, is how easy is it to update the data in bulk, okay? It's obviously easy enough to go in and edit one record at a time. Anybody can do that. You open up the record, you make the change, etc. The question is, what if you need to make changes to 100 records? The same change to 1,000 records, or 5,000 records, or 50,000 records, okay? And now, if I'm having to do that one at a time, I'm not going to spend my entire weekend updating 1,000 records. I want to be able to go into some sort of a spreadsheet mode, like an Excel spreadsheet copy, if you will, of the data, and make those changes real time in the system, okay? Or better yet, let's say I'm trying to find and replace data within my list, if you will. So I'm not doing it in spreadsheet mode, but I'm doing more of a find replace, which you might be familiar with like in Word or Excel, and having the system go out and do that work for me. That's a super important capability. Or what about finding and replacing in the schema? Okay, now the schema, again, I'm throwing out, you know, some technical terms there. What I really mean by that is, you know, you can find and search things within the data itself, like the client's first name and the client's last name, or the, you know, customer type, whatever it might be. But what about the actual field names themselves, the table names themselves? In other words, can you find and replace within the data structure, not just within the data itself? Okay, those are things, maybe it doesn't come up quite as often, but that is something that can become important, again, over time, when you are growing and continuing to scaling, and now you're feeling like you need to make some changes. Okay, all right, I'm going to go to the next page, which is specifically around the topic of can that data be exported and imported. All right, how easy is this to do, and why in the world is it even important? Well, first off, let's say you've got multiple systems and there isn't an integration. Maybe there is no open API, maybe there's no existing Zapier or Workato connection to allow those two different systems to connect, but you still need to get data out of one system and into another system. Well, being able to export that data and then manipulate that data and or use it for other systems becomes incredibly important. Okay, and that might be something you do on a daily basis or a weekly basis. You know, every day I'm exporting a list of timesheets and I'm importing that into my payroll system, or you know, that type of thing. Obviously, if you can automate that, integrate that, that's even better. But at a minimum, you ought to be able to export your data and do something with it. You ought to be able to import data to either add new records to a system or update existing data within an existing system. Okay. And by the way, the holy grail here is being able to export data from your system, do some stuff in Excel spreadsheet mode, right? Updating a whole bunch of things, and then be able to re-import that data without creating new records, but re-import that data and update the existing data within your system. That's the holy grail. So being able to export, manipulate, and then update by importing that data, again, super important. And quite frankly, we do it all the time. Okay, it happens all the time. You know, whether you've got disconnected systems or it's just a thing that your solution doesn't do automatically, you need to be able to export it, make those changes, and re-import and update. All right, almost the last thing I want to talk about here is the user or community that maybe revolves around this solution that you're choosing. Okay, have you chosen a platform that is easy to maintain as a user of the platform, okay, as either as a client or a buyer, okay, or how easy is it to access developers to help with that solution? Now, I'm going to give you an example. There are some solutions out there that are super what I call tech friendly or technical expert friendly type of solutions. Salesforce is very capable solution, more for enterprise grade clients, but it's also built more for the technology IT people than it is for casual everyday users. SharePoint by Microsoft has some really good capabilities, but it's really not built for what I would call normal users. there's a whole tech layer that really has to be engaged in and through, and that's perfect for IT and developer types, not so great for quote unquote normal users, okay? And I consider myself, by the way, a normal user. I want to be able to get into a system as a normal user and maintain that system without having to call a developer every single time I want to make a change, okay? So how user maintainable is it? The second tier of this in terms of community support is there a developer community out there that can help, right? You don't want to buy a software solution that's written on a code base or a coding language that 5 people in the world know, and anytime you need to make a change, you have to call that person and get on their list, right, and have them make the changes. We get calls from clients and prospects of our company all the time where there was a solution that was built. It was built 10 years ago, 20 years ago. The developer who built it, they were part of the company, and hey, quite frankly, they're getting older, they're retiring, they're leaving the company, they're moving on to something else, or quite frankly, they're just getting tired and like, oh, I just don't want to do this anymore. Okay, well, if that person is the only person that knows how to develop or update that solution, where are you going to be trying, what are you going to be stuck with at the end of the day? You're going to be stuck trying to find somebody that can understand what was done, probably create documentation that wasn't created in the first place, right? And then that's like a prerequisite for being able to get in an update. So you want to preferably find a platform that has a community of developers that you can lean on when your limits have been exceeded. Maybe you just don't have time to do certain things. Maybe you've kind of hit the wall or hit the limit in terms of the tech side of things, and you're like, I don't even want to spend the 20 hours to figure this thing out. I just want to be able to call somebody and have them go do it. Can you do that? Are there people out there to do that? So the reason why this is an important consideration when building or buying scalable solutions is because you want a rich field of developers that you can call on. You don't want to be a slave to any particular developer. You don't want to be a slave to any particular platform or coding language. You really need to have the ability to go out and tap into anybody out there that can handle it and get what you need. All right, so I'm going to have one more poll here. I'm going to pull up this last poll, and the question is, as I launch this poll, is what would you value the most? So what would you value the most in terms of some of those problems that I talked about? Go ahead and take a vote there as I talk through these. But do you value being able to edit data in that spreadsheet type of mode? Or do you value the ability to find and replace data? Like, do you think that would be valuable? What about manipulating data through the whole export import, or having that developer community or support community that you can reach out to when you need additional resources beyond what you have internally? Go ahead and take a few minutes there to make your vote, or not a few minutes, sorry. Take a few seconds to vote, and I'll show you the results here in just one moment. All right, wow, I am very surprised by these results. This is fantastic. This is why we do polls. It's like to find out like what people really think. I'm going to share the results. I'm blown away by this. I've never seen everybody have the exact same answer. So 100% of you said easily finding and replacing data. Wow, that's pretty impressive. So sounds like that's important. Sounds like that's a very, very common need, being able to find and replace data through that whole export import. That's fantastic. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to answer that question. Let's go ahead on to the next, the last part of our presentation today. And again, we'll wrap up with any questions you have, any clarifications on any of the stuff that we've talked through. So what do we recommend? Okay, so what do we, as a company, VARC Solutions, what do we recommend? There's a lot of solutions out there. We are experts in a platform called Quickbase. Okay, And we love it. We use it to run our entire business, quite frankly. But it's a cloud-based solution. It's a low-code solution, and it's widely supported. It is very, very scalable as well. I'm going to give you just a few highlights. If you guys want to see, if you don't currently know what Quickbase is, you've never seen it, we could do a whole nother webinar just on the actual platform itself. If you want to see a one-on-one demo, we can do that. What I want to do here is just kind of give you some of the highlights real quickly. First off, why Quickbase? Like, why do we develop on it? Why do we love it? First off, Quickbase is a low-code platform. It's cloud-based. It ultimately is a relational database in the sky, okay? But it's not just data, right? It's not just tables and fields and reports. It is a platform that can automate and manage business processes, okay? It's affordable for small teams. In other words, you could use Quickbase with as little as 2 people, all the way up to 20,000 people. I mean, it is very, very scalable. To give you an example about this, Quickbase as a platform was actually created by Intuit over 17, 18 years ago. That's why that's why the word quick is in it, because it was, Quicken, QuickBooks, Quickbase. Intuit created that platform. Well, guess what? Intuit still uses Quickbase in a lot of their different departments and teams. Here we are, 17 years later. It's no longer owned by Intuit. Now it's a separate company. Now it's a separate solution. But companies like Southwest Airlines use Quickbase because they know that it can, manage a lot of the details that various teams within that company use. And by the way, it's just one example that I know a lot of people will recognize. But there's some big companies that use Quickbase. But my point is, it's also very, very appropriate for 2 people, 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, 30 people. Very, very effective and affordable, okay? There's a lot of developers out there that support the solution as well, and that's one of the reasons why we love it. But some of those pain points we talked about, being able to build automations, being able to handle integrations, having an open API connectivity, those are super important, and those are just table stakes, if you will, for what Quickbase can do. It's very easy to customize as well, and it can handle the exceptions. What I really love about Quickbase, just in terms of the platform, is you can build common, recurring, repeatable business processes. But if there is somebody throws a wrench into that process and there's an exception, you can build into the platform ways of handling those exceptions. If this thing happens, do this differently, than on this particular project. Totally handleable within that platform. It's very accessible in terms of the data. You can export data, you can import data. You have very robust reporting capabilities, also dashboard capabilities. One of the things that we advise our clients all the time on is, build dashboards to help you manage not just the data, but help you manage your team and their workload and their workflows. And if you haven't built out dashboards, that is one of the things that I highly recommend you do. And they make your life just so much easier, because you can go open up one dashboard and see exactly what you need to do, versus trying to dig through a report and looking for things that you need to find or fix, okay? And I can hold a whole nother webinar just on that. User roles and permissions, data level permissions, built into Quickbase. It's part of the plan, it's part of the structure, it's part of the data governance, and it just works, okay? So in terms of next steps, if you'd like to learn more about Quickbase, or if you want to explore any of these topics that we talked about, whether it's automations, whether it's integrations, whether it's the reporting structure, or just building out various business processes, we would love, obviously, to help you with that. But first is, hey, if you've never seen Quickbase, let's schedule a one-on-one demo. Let us know that you would like to learn more about it. We will get on a Zoom call with you. We'll do a one-on-one live demo of a Quickbase and show you what it can look like. And that's really the best way of experiencing the platform. Obviously, there's pricing, and we can share with you. We can talk about how Quickbase could be leveraged specifically for your business and what you're trying to do. Would love to help you with that. 2 or 3 last slides here. Just want to give you a kind of a minute version of who we are if you're not familiar with who we are. Our company is called VARC Solutions. We're actually based out of Friendswood, Texas, which is South Houston. We've been in business since 1999. We've got a 17-person staff here, and really we pride ourselves in being experts on 2 big things. We are experts on QuickBooks, the accounting software, and we're also experts at Quickbase. We are builders and solution providers on both of those platforms. We also know how to integrate the 2, by the way, if that's ever a need. But on the QuickBooks side, we also do bookkeeping, we do cleanups, we do migrations from other systems into QuickBooks. So we are QuickBooks experts as well as Quickbase. Our Quickbase team specifically, we've got 5 certified expert Quickbase builders or developers. They're all in the US here. We are one of the top 10 Quickbase solution providers in the country. We've built literally thousands of applications for different clients over our 25-year history. And again, we specialize in Quickbase and QuickBooks. And because we specialize in both, we do a lot of those types of integrations for folks. Last thing I'll mention here, we have clients nationwide. We work primarily with small to medium-sized companies, growing and scaling businesses that are starting small, mid-size, going into that mid-market type of zone. Every industry you can imagine we work with. QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online. If you're trying to scale and you're either experiencing growing pains or know that you're going to if you keep at the pace you're growing, that's where people call us for help. Our phone number's on the screen there. Our email address is on the screen there. If you want help, please do reach out. We would love to help, whether it's just a demo, whether it's answering questions like maybe you're considering, Salesforce versus Quickbase, or maybe you're considering, HubSpot for a CRM versus some other system. Give us a call. Let us know. We're happy to help you. If we don't know the answer, we'll find it and we'll get you the help you need. That is the webinar that I wanted to share and the content that I wanted to share with you today. Again, if you have any questions, I'm going to hang out for another 5, 10, 15 minutes here. As long as you're here, I'll be here to answer any questions you have. You've got the number if you want to call us or email us, and we'd love to help. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and if anybody has any questions, I will be sticking around for that.